This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're in Sacramento today, and we are joined by Chris Holden. He is a member of the California State Assembly, and the governor recently came out with his May Revise, a term of art in the world of California budgets. Money is looking okay. We're not down as much as he thought we'd be in January, but purportedly down a bit. Although sometimes the LAO says differently. What do you think of revenues and targets?
Well, I think it's important to be realistic about what the target should be, and I think the governor has sort of set a target that was reasonable, and then he dropped it to be a little bit more conservative. The LAO usually comes in at what's actual, and so I think under these circumstances, it always puts us in a position where we're not overshooting our mark, and I think to that end, the governor receives a lot of credit. He's established reserves and rainy day funds, which I think are very important because we all recognize and remember what happened into the early part of the decade. So when you're looking at 2006, 7, 8, 9, you know, the economy shifted on us and we had to really go through some deep cuts. So this helps us.
What the governor has said is he's concerned about our economic future, because when you look at recoveries, the recovery that we're enjoying right now is pretty long. It's third behind the 91 recovery and the 1961 recovery. And so what do you make of his concerns that maybe our good luck could be running out on the recovery front?
Well, I think it certainly is a real possibility. I think we have to continue to invest in certain segments of our economy, which I think we've been able to do. Try to, as we've done with the entertainment industry, have a tax credit to help stimulate growth in that area. But at the end of the day, you know, we still have to be mindful of the fact that much like what happened in 2007, the same thing can happen again, and we have to be smart about how we go forward.
What's also challenging for California is a good amount of money that the state receives comes through the federal government. And this is a federal government under a new administration that seems to want to engage in very, very, very significant cuts. We could put the Affordable Care Act aside. That's one conversation. But the recently released budget of the new president is, you know, arguably quite draconian in its cuts. So how does California prepare on that front?
Well, I think what we're seeing the administration in Washington do is be very harsh on the working poor, cutting pretty much a hole in the safety net so that people are going to fall through. And what we're trying to do in California is reinforce these guiding principles that we need to make sure that the least of these in our society are taken care of to the extent we can. And so making sure that Medi-Cal is solid and secure, and that we are looking at the health and well-being of our citizens, and that immigration issues, environmental issues that we've established.
Well, let's break those down, because on the Medi-Cal front, Medicaid, what we know is the new administration is not interested in continuing the expansion, which was arguably quite successful in the state of California. We don't know what's going to happen with the purported repeal of the Affordable Care Act. But, I mean, the administration seems pretty set on, from what they say, kind of eviscerating the healthcare systems that we've had in place for, God, close to 50 years.
I think that's true. But I also think what's happening with this, with the new president, is that he's understanding that things that he said during the campaign don't necessarily line up with what it requires to be a governing president.
But what's interesting about that is, you know, some of the things he said in the campaign as firm line in the sand statements, he appears not to be concerned with keeping those promises. Pre-existing condition, for example, and I'm not trying to take a position, but on pre-existing condition, I mean, he said repeatedly during the campaign that we would not take away the protection for pre-existing conditions, but in the repeal of the Affordable Care Act in the House, states are given the right to remove pre-existing condition protections.
And I think what he was trying to do is try to navigate through his party and recognize that there are factions in the party that wanted to really blow up completely the affordable health care plan that was in place. And certainly others who are more moderate members of his party recognized that protecting those with pre-existing health conditions was paramount.
Right.
And I think that's where the Senate will probably have a more sobering approach to try to figure out.
But the challenge for California when we look at our budget is that what they're looking towards is high-risk pools for those with pre-existing conditions.
That doesn't work.
We tried that in California, and it
work.
was an abysmal failure.
Right.
And so how does one prepare for the possibility?
Well, I think what we need to continue to do is to invest in our system. I think we want to make sure that, and there is a proposal that's in the Senate that is looking at going to single payer.
Single payer.
So going even further.
Than the Affordable Care Act.
Right. So I think there's a recognition that in California we want to be the trendsetter. We want to, and from my vantage point, I want to at least protect what we have.
I hear you.
It's exciting to think about the prospects of going beyond that, but we want to make sure that the millions of folks in California continue to be covered.
And you mentioned immigration, and the new administration's been very clear that they want local governments, state, county, city, to support their immigration crackdown. California is going the other way. We have a bill that would, it's still making its way through, but create kind of a sanctuary state, whatever that may mean.
Right.
But the new Attorney General has been very clear that they want to withhold federal funds. How much they can withhold, if at all, is in question. The courts are already involved, but how does one prepare for that possibility? The withholding of law enforcement funds, let's say.
Well, look, if California was its own nation, and we're referred to as a nation state, we'd be the 6th largest country in the world. And with the kind of responsibilities and resources and balancing of budgets and impact that that has to this country, I think is clear that you just can't pull out the stopper and let all the water just run out down the drain. There has to be a very smart, comprehensive approach that's a federal approach that deals with immigration, because having each state try to piecemeal it is not the way to go either.
I want to ask about the priorities of a caucus which you chair, the Legislative Black Caucus.
Yes.
Not monolithic, by the way. Not a monolithic caucus.
No, it is not.
I mean, there are people that are more left of center and people that are more moderate.
That's
and
true.
So how are you wrangling all your members in terms of budgetary priorities?
One day at a time.
Exactly.
Well, I think what happens is that, like with any other body, you have to eventually figure out where the common ground is and try to build on that. I know we have some members who are very enthusiastic about moving very aggressively on a variety of policy issues, and others that are less enthusiastic. So within our caucus, it really is a litmus test on where the Democratic caucus, I think,
in a lot of ways, you're kind of a lab for the future of the Democratic Party, because you have folks that are, really range in terms of the spectrum.
And it's really interesting, because this being our 50th year as a caucus, and we're celebrating our anniversary year, to remember the early years where you pretty much had every member where we were all locked in together. So it is a little bit different in terms of, but I think that there is a understanding that for the members, we're trying to continue to reinforce that there's a long-standing legacy and history here that, at least with the African American caucus, focusing on the needs of African Americans in California. And you will find that by and large more are on the short end of the stick.
I understand.
And whether it's in need of the things we talked about, or quality education, the need to use the public school system.
I'd love to have you back to talk more about the 50th year. I think that'd be an exciting conversation.
I'd love to.
Okay, his name is Chris Holden. He is a member of the California State Assembly. We're in Sacramento today, and this is Local Edition.